Hello and welcome back to another walkthrough video here. Today we're going to be doing the VulnNet internal on TryHackMe. This VulnNet was released as a series. I think there's 3 or 4 in total in it that I can think of off the top of my head. And this is the second one in that line. So let me get the machine started and we'll be back. Okay, you got the machine up and running. As you see, I've got the IP address in the etc host file. And I'm just going to call it inte.thm. Now we're going to run our first Nmap scan, and we're just going to keep it simple. Okay, so off the bat, we see we have SSH, rsync, NFS, and all this. So we should be able to make a connection to the machine, hopefully. This right here tells me that we're going to be able to have access to file archive storage on the machine eventually, possibly, and we either have to pull things down or put things up. And NFS, this basically means that we can potentially mount a drive from this machine locally and be able to read from it. Samba client. You've not used this before. A couple of commands you need to know are pretty easy. The main one is this -L. That's basically, think of it just like, hey, I just want to take a look. Put in our server, ask for a password. We don't have one, so we just hit enter. And as you can see, we have the shares, VulnNet business shares. Okay, and to look in that share folder, we just put in 2 forward slashes, our server name, / and shares. Okay, once password again, we don't have anything, so we just hit enter. Okay, so now since we're in, do ls. Okay, we got a couple of directories here. You can denote the directories by the D. So let's do change into temp, ls, and you see we have a service.txt. Okay, and to get that file, we'll just do get services.txt and just name it service.txt. Okay, if we go into the folder here, you'll see that indeed we did download it. And this will be the first flag of the 4 that you need to find. Okay, so next we're going to go shoot for that NFS. And first thing you want to do is you want to run sudo make directory -p /mount/NFS. This is going to make a folder in the mount directory that we're going to use to mount that NFS drive to. Okay, and to know where we're going to mount onto this folder we just made, we're going to use the command show mount -e and then our name for the server. As you can see, it has an opt config here. Okay, so to get this mounted, we're going to do sudo mount -t NFS. We're going to point that to our server, and then put in that /opt/config that we found. And we want to put it on folder that we made, the mnt NFS. We hit enter. Takes it a second, but now if we change directories and go to that folder we made, we're in it, hit ls. As you can see, we now have access to directories here. Okay, so I just listed everything out again. You see everything is owned by root. Now Redis here stands out above the rest to me, so let's go in there. If we take a look, we have a Redis config. So you can open the config with any text editor that you have. For this, I'm just going to use Nano because it's easy for me to search in that one. Do Control W, and let's take a look first, see if we can find anything for password, and we'll just put in pass. Alright, nothing there. So we'll do the Control W again. And if you didn't know, if something shows up right here, you can just hit enter and it'll search for that. Okay, here we go. Did it a few times and we came across this require pass, and then we have this code here. So save that, and we're going to see if we can auth to the Redis port to get access that way. Okay, and to connect, we'll just use the Redis/CLI, use the -h option and the name of our server, and we are in. So I'm going to type auth, and then put in the password we found. It says okay, so we should be good. Okay, so we want to see if we can find any keys, so we'll do keys*. You see we have one called internal flag. And if you run the git command, git internal flag, make sure it's in quotes, we can get that flag. So doing the keys again, you see we also had an auth list here. So let's see if we can get any information from that. All right, first thing I want to try is this L range auth list 0-1. That's basically saying, hey, look through this and find not the last authorization, but the one before that. Okay, and we see there were several attempts, and it looks like it's a base64 code. So let's just hard copy that. And in a new tab, I'm just going to do echo that code that we found and pipe it to base64-d. And authorization for rsync gives us a name with password. All right, so we got a new password and a new way to connect to the machine. Okay, we're going to do that first with rsync, and we're going to use the list only option because we just want to read what's hosted there. We'll do rsync : / and then that username and then @ and you have to actually put the server IP address in for this command. Okay, so we have files, necessary home interaction. So we'll run the command again, except we'll add the /files to it. Okay, now you see it wants a password, so we'll put in that password we found. And it looks like we have a home directory listing, SSM user, SSS internal, and Ubuntu. And by the output over here, we can see that we have read access to each of these. So let's take a look at SSM user first. Oh, wait. Yeah, I looked at my notes again. Should be this. There we go. Okay, so bash logout, bash rc profile, nothing useful there. Let's go to sysinternals and try that again. Password. And okay, we got a full user directory here. Okay, so we got a user.txt and an SSH folder that we probably have write access to. Looks like, maybe. Okay, and real quick, I'm going to leave a link to this page. If you've never used rsync or not familiar with the commands and everything, this is the man page for it. It is a bit of good read at first, but it gives you a lot of information to understand about it, and then we get into the options summary. So how do we get that user.txt? Okay, we're going to use rsync again, but this time we're going to use option-AV, and what that is A is for archive. That basically triggers several switches. And then V is just verbose, so let us know when it's done and all that stuff. And don't forget to put the // that means we want to download it to the directory we are currently in, and I realize we are still here. So first, let's change back. Okay, so now since we're back in the folder for this box, I'm going to run that rsync command, make sure to add the user.txt on the end, and this / that tells it to download to the folder we're currently in. Give it the password, and we should be able to see we have user.txt, so that will be our third flag for this box. Okay, so now back to this .ssh here. So let's see if we can list it out. I remember to put the / correctly on the end. Okay, so there's nothing in there right now, but we might actually have write access to it. So for that, we need to make a password. We're just going to use SSH keygen -f, and we're going to make an ID_RSA file right here in this folder. Hit enter, enter, there we go. You should see you have an ID_RSA and ID_RSA.pub. Now we need to give an authorized key to the server so we can SSH to it. And the key we need to give it is the .pub. And we can simply make a copy of that file and call it authorized keys. And then using the rsync-AV to put something up, we'll put the file that we want to transfer first. And then we use the rsync, give it that username, point it to the IP address. We want to go into files, into the sysinternal user, and to their .ssh folder. So we hit enter. Boy, I was not paying attention when I was typing that. Let's try that again. There we go. Once the password. All right, it said sending incremental file list, sent it. So now if we come back over here, exit out. Before we SSH, I almost forgot we need to change mod 600 IDRSA. Okay, so now we can run SSH sysinternal at nt.thm use the -I to point to that ID RSA file we have. Yes, we want to accept fingerprint, and we are in. Okay, so there's several things you can do here to try to figure out how to move around and elevate the root or be able to gain read access this root. But we're just going to jump straight to what it was that I found that led to getting root. Do ls root. And the reason you want to do this is you want to look, this is the way you want to check for like if you're in a Docker container or not. And looking at it this way can be hard sometimes, so most time I'll just do it with the AL command. And for me, this is actually better to look at. So everything looks normal here, except we go down, we find Team City. What is Team City? Team City is a product offered by JetBrains. Basically, Team City works as a web interface so multiple programmers can collab together, is basically what it is. So let's change into that directory. Now since we're in here, let's take a look at what we have. Okay, there's a couple of interesting things here. There's a config folder, there's logs, there's a readme, Tomcat routing, several things to look at. What we're interested is in the logs file, or logs folder. Okay, there is a bunch of stuff in here. But the thing I'm looking at is stuff that has today's date when I'm doing this, which is March 23rd. And you see we got a couple of files here. I'm going to start by looking at this one. Okay, so up top here we see we got some Java options. And I'm going to go down to the second line here, so I'm interested in what's in the log. So we come over, we see server version name. It is an Apache Tomcat. Oops. Server build. Server version number, which is interesting. Linux. It looks like, yeah, the OS version, so that's the kernel. Architecture. Java home. Okay, so that lets us know where it's at. So you can see there's quite a bit of interesting information down through here. But there's also a lot of lines, and it's tedious to go through one by one. Now, Team City uses tokens, passwords. You can search for those type of things. So we're going to run the cat catalina.out and grep for token. And as you can see, we get several. But notice here it also says use empty username with token as password to access the server. Alright, so where do we go to access this? Well, if you remember the nmap, if you do the larger nmap to scan all the ports, you'll see a few more things, but there's no public web face that I was able to find. So let's go back through this file, except this time we're going to see if we can find anything with localhost. And sure enough, we found quite a bit. And this last one here is what we're interested in. URL localhost port 8111. So we're going to come back to our other terminal here, and we're going to run the SSH command. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a tunnel that allows us to access things from the target machine. It's a port forwarding technique. So you make sure we pass that ID RSA file so we can log in. And there's our login to the server. And we're going to do a local port forwarding. So that means that whenever I access the port from my local machine, or the Kali box in this instance, it will point it down the tube to this other machine and said, hey, access this port on that machine. And the port we want is 8111, and we'll tell localhost 8111. That's the command or the way it wants to tell the other server to look at the port. And so to access it from our side, we'll just come to our browser, type in http://localhost 8111, and it loads up, and you can see we can see the Team City page. Now, remember it said to keep the username blank, so we'll just grab that password, that token. So I'll grab that token that I saved, drop it in the password field. That one didn't take. Okay, let me go back and run. So I went back and ran that token command again. Let's just try another one of these, see if it works. Okay, so the last token ended up working for me. So as you can see, I don't know how well you can see it, but in the top right here, you see we logged in as super user, and we have the option to create a project. Now, without going into too much detail about how the TeamCity environment is set up. Basically, we can create a project and we can actually run some code through TeamCity on the machine. So click on Create Project, make sure Manually is selected, just give it a name. I like Pyrev myself. Click on Create. Okay, so next one, click on Build Configuration. Call it Shell. Create. Okay, so when we get here, just want to hit Skip. Okay, and then click on Build Steps. Add Build Step. And we want Command Line. Okay, we'll come to a Rev Shell and make sure this IP address here matches your tunnel IP address. That's what you're connected to Try Hack Me with. Sorry if you hear the lawnmower outside, they're working today. And we'll come down here. I like to select Linux, be a little specific when I know the machine. And I want Python number 2, bin bash. Alright, so this all should be good. So we'll just copy this. We'll just plop that in there and click Save. And now you see it says we can run, but before we click that, let's come back over here to our terminal. Create a new tab. We want to run netcat on port 9001 or whatever port you set the Rev Shell script to. Come back over here and click Run. Okay, it says it's running, so we come back over to our terminal. You see we have a connection and we are as root. So just to verify, yep. So now you can just do change directory /root ls all, and you can see the root.txt, and there's your last flag. Alright, so that's it for the VulnNet internal. So a chance to get exposed to a few new type of programs and applications if you've not seen them before. Definitely, like I said, read over the rsync command page, and anytime you come across a command that someone used like the SMB client or the Redis CLI, look to see if they have a man page or some documentation, and take your time to look through it and read it and learn a little bit more about the tool. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like the content that I make and you enjoy hanging out here, hit the subscribe button. And I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time.